I don't know how to have an intelligent conversation about this stuff. I don't know how to make this easier for you. It's dumb. None of it means anything. Bike people kind of know that, but you wouldn't. Hey, bike farmers, thanks for clicking in. I've been saying for a long time that bike sizing is just plain stupid. When somebody asks me what size bike do I need, I say it's impossible to answer that question. None of it makes any sense at all. So in this video, I'm gonna do my best to explain every little detail about bike sizing that I'm aware of. All of this was triggered by a recent Facebook post that I saw. Somebody said, hey, I'm 5'10". Would a bike with a 17-inch frame be too small for me? And within minutes, there was 10 different answers to that question. I remember asking a random question to a friend, and he looked at me and he's like, how long is a piece of string? You gotta measure it. The only way to really know is to go to the bike shop, get some that look like they might be in your range, and then get on them. For myself, I know approximately what size bike I need. It's not like shoe sizes, where every bike has a number that you can attach to it, and like, I'm size 10.5 shoe, or I'm size 20-inch bike. It doesn't work that way. Here at the bike shop, I keep it simple. I've got extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. So I got the bikes all lined up outside. I think I kind of have one of each size. Went to Bikes for Kids Wisconsin, where they've got thousands of bikes laying around, just to get some of the oddball sizes so I can show you examples. I'm gonna tell you everything I know. So let's start with this one right here. I don't know if I've ever seen one this size, and it was hanging from a stand at Bikes for Kids, just like this, and it's hilarious because it's got a Chinelli saddle. Super funny. This has kind of a hard rubber plastic tire on it, unmarked. Most of the time, kids' bikes are sized by wheel size. So I don't even know. This one's not marked. Let's measure it, see if we can figure it out. Okay, so it's like 10 inches. I'm gonna call it 10-inch. Now this one's weird. It kind of looks like one of those Strider kick bikes, balance bike things, but it actually has a crank and a cog. It's missing its chain. This is a bike for a toddler. How old? I don't know. How old's a toddler? 1 to 2 years old. I don't know. All right, for the kids' bikes, I thought I'd just come outside and show you the example with them all lined up here. They kind of start at 12-inch. We call them 12-inch bikes. It's gonna be called a 12-inch bike when you go to Walmart and see them all lined up. And that's because it's got a 12-inch wheel, right? But on the tire, it says 12.5-inch because they don't want it to be easy for you. This is a 14-inch. Now these you'll never see in a bike shop. Bike shop quality bikes come in 12-inch and 16-inch, but not 14-inch, and this one's an 18-inch. 14-inch and the 18-inch will only be found at the Walmarts and the Farm and Fleet, you know, the big box stores, the department store bikes, right? They're only the cheap bikes because they're consumer grade products, and consumer grade products are only made to sell you stuff you don't need. So what they're gonna say is like, you know, that little one I had in there was like 1 to 3 years old. This one might be like 2 to 4 years old, and then this one will be 3 to 5 years old, and then this one will be 4 to 6, and then you'll be 5 to 7, you know what I mean? And they do that to make you think that you need to buy a bike every couple of years. But like I said, the shop quality brands, they just do 12, and then they jump right up to 16, and then to 20. That's all you need, because you can adjust the handlebars and the seats, and they're kids. They don't really care. I get questions from parents all the time, like, oh, what size do I need? I think like a 14-inch, and it's like, no. You've been to Walmart. So this is a 14-inch, and you can see there's like no difference hardly at all between the 14-inch and the 16-inch. It's like almost the same bike. It's a little bit taller, but like you can adjust that out just with some simple adjustments. So then same thing with like, here's the 16, right? And the 18 is a little bit bigger, but you can put the seat down on this 20-inch bike and like get the kid to ride that, and then they grow into it. Now this is a 20-inch kids bike. That'll make it even weirder, right? This is a 20-inch bike too, but see how much taller it is? This is like an adult BMX bike, but they still call it a 20-inch. By the number, this bike and this bike are the same size, but this is like for a 5-year-old, and then I could ride this bike. So this is a 20-inch bike, 20-inch wheel. Now this bike goes about a 7 or 8-year-old kid maybe, right? You can jack it up and then they'll outgrow it. And then when they're like 7 or 8, we put the seat way down on this 24-inch bike. And this one's gonna come, it's gonna be a freewheel, it's gonna have gears, handbrakes and everything. This is like, start getting into adult bikes. So 24-inch is the wheel size. The frame is like an extra small frame. Now I don't know what the frame size is. Kids' bikes primarily are just wheel sizes inches until you get to the 24 inch. Now, a lot of the department store 24 inch bikes actually have bigger frames on them. They're like bigger bikes than this, but this is a shop quality 24 inch bike, and they're all pretty much the same size, 9 to 11 years old figure-ish, but every kid is different. So I don't know how big of a bike you need for your 8-year-old. Kid has to come in, and if they're like really good at riding bikes, we put them on a bike that's too big for them, that has shifters and everything, and then they grow into it. It stretches your buck a little bit. If they're not really good at riding bikes, you put them on one with a coaster brake and with a single speed, and they just ride around and have a great time on a bike. It all depends all the time. How long is a piece of string? We don't know. It's impossible to answer. Bring the kid in so we can figure it out. Okay, just to recap, this is a 12-inch bike, very commonly found at all bike shops. This is a 14-inch bike, only found at department stores. You don't need it. Okay, this is a 16-inch bike, very commonly found at bike shops, decent quality, good bike. That's the next size up. This is an 18-inch. It's only found at department stores, and you don't need to buy these. You don't need an 18-inch bike. Nobody needs to have an 18-inch bike. They should just get rid of them. Okay, this is an extra small kid's bike. This is a small. Okay, and then kids' bikes. This would be what I would call a medium-sized kid's bike. It's a 20-inch wheel. It's got a coaster brake. It's kind of like the in-betweener, but eventually they outgrow them, and they need something with gears, and they got to keep up. That's when you get your 24-inch bike and you got the derailleur. Sometimes they have a triple chainring. I think it's stupid. Kids don't understand how to shift or anything, so they've kind of gotten away with that, and everything's a one-by now. But hand brakes, it's a little bit bigger. It's more of a mountain bike. They're better at handling bikes. You can kind of go around. They can keep up with you on bike rides. It's great. Get them the 24-inch bike. It's that in-between size. Unless your kid really likes to get rad and they got tall, then you can keep them on the 20-inch bike, and you've got BMX. And this is technically a full-size BMX bike, and a fully grown man can ride it. I don't know. I always think it's a little weird. I'm not much of a BMX guy. I don't really get it. But they're all kind of the same size too, I think, for the most. We're not caring about frame sizes yet. It's just the wheels, and then proportionally the bike is that way. So let's start confusing you. 24-inch. We'll just slide this guy in right behind it. So this would be the next size up, and it's a 13-inch bike. It says 13 right here, but the wheel size is 26-inch. A 26-inch was the mountain bike wheel size for a long time. We can get into wheel sizes too if you want to go down that road. It's a whole nother animal. 26-inch wheels, 2-inch tire. This is like 24-inch wheel. I don't even know. We can get into tire size. It just gets so confusing. It's hard to explain, but this is a 13-inch frame with a 26-inch wheel. This would be like, I don't know, we can measure it. Maybe a 12-inch frame. Frames are measured from here to here. I'll explain that in a minute. But these wheel sizes a little bit smaller. But really, this bike isn't a whole lot bigger. So a lot of times when you keep the kid on the 20-inch bike for a little too long, you can skip this and just go with an extra small adult bike. That's what this is an extra small adult bike. Now, because it's really hard to compete with the marketing teams behind the consumer grade products, it's really hard to convince a parent that their 9-year-old belongs on an adult bike. But that's what this bike is, and it's perfect for a kid. And back in the day, you could have gotten a Specialized Hard Rock in an extra large, right? Like a full-size bike. The wheels would have been the same size, but the frame would have gotten much bigger. A lot of the times you can find out the size of the bike by finding the sticker that's on the seat tube. Now, bikes traditionally have been measured from center to center here, and that should be 13 inches, but it's not. It's 12 inches. So maybe to the top, I don't know, center to top. Okay, so center of the bottom bracket to the top of the top tube is 13 inches. So that's how they call it a size 13, you know, even though it measures 12 to me. So if I were to measure this, I would call it a 12, but it says 13 on it, so it's a 13. Now somewhere there's a parent out there who believes that their kid is a size 13 bike and will only buy a bike if it's got a 13 on it. Okay, now if somebody takes that sticker off, then it's my job to convince that parent that this bike will fit the kid, even though I would have measured it for them and said it was a 12-inch. Just because I'm all worked up and feeling extra snarky. This is the 24-inch bike that we were comparing it to. And if we go center to center, okay, it's 10 inches. Okay, I said 11 before, so if we go center to top, it's 11 inches. So technically this frame is 2 inches smaller than the last. And typically they go in about 2-inch increments. All right, I'm gonna grab the next size up adult bike and go inside, and let's start getting more confused. All right, we're back inside. I guess I'm a little bit more calmed down because it's like cold and windy out there, and now it's nice and quiet in my shop. So you're welcome. Here's the 13-inch that we just measured as a 12. Now, technically speaking, there would be a size in between this one and this one, because this one says 17 on it, okay? Now, the 17 would be, in my world, center to center, but it's not. It measures 16 center to center. So if this bike didn't have the sticker on it, and I didn't know any better, I would measure it and call it a 16, and I would call it a small. But my gut, you know, is always that a 17-inch bike would make it a medium. So right there, we kind of have a confusion. But I know that this one is extra small. I can just tell by looking at it, it's really, really crunched. You know, you can see there's like hardly any space between the bottle cage and the top tube, where you got a pretty good space here. This one's got 2 bottles on it. I also look at this joint here, and if there's a big gap there, you know it's a big bike, and if it's really scrunched up, it's a little bike. There's other ways to look at it, but I would have gotten it wrong with this one. And so if a parent comes in and says they need a 16-inch bike and this one says 17, they're gonna be like, it's the wrong size, I won't buy it. But it would fit just fine. Like, let's put the kid on it and ride it. I'm really good at looking at people and then getting them on the right bike, and sometimes I'm wrong, you know, and then I'm like, oh, you actually, you know, need a bigger bike, because I don't think you really know until you get on the bike and ride it. You know, we won't even talk about the fact that nobody has their seat height right. You know, I just want people to get on the bike, get it so at the bottom of your pedal stroke, there's a slight bend to your knee, and then I look and just kind of see proportionately how you're on the bike and if you're comfortable or not. That's all that matters. That is all that matters. So this is extra small. There would be a small that would measure closer to 15 inches there, but this is a medium. This is a typical, the really common size bike. I've got another one right over there that says 17 on it. I have like 4 other Treks just right over there, and they're all like 17 and a half. Some of them cost, so like Specialized uses 17, and then Trek, same era, would call it 17 and a half inch. Should we grab one of those and measure it? Okay, I've got this beautiful example of a Trek 7.2 FX. You've seen a million of these on the channel. Now right here on the frame, it says 17 and a half inch. So I like to measure center to center. I don't know if that's how Trek likes to do it. Okay, so center to center, even though it says 17 and a half inch, it is measuring closer to 15 and a half inch. So center to the top of, okay. So if I go all the way to the top of the seat tube here, that's 17 and a half inches. So if this didn't have the sticker on it and I'd have measured this bike, I'd have been like, it's a 15 inch, which I would have called this a small. But since it says 17 and a half, maybe I call it a medium. 17 and a half is a bigger number than 17. Is this bike bigger? Well, it has bigger wheels. So these are 700C, and I still to this day cannot tell you what 700C means. But 700C is how big of a round the wheel is. And the tires, it's 700C by 35 millimeter. 35 millimeter is the width of the tire. These tires, so this is the same size bike essentially, 17 and a half. Both I'd call medium, but this one has a 26-inch wheel, so that's the diameter, I believe-ish. And it's not even, it's more like a 22 or 23-inch diameter, but with a 2-inch tire on it, it's 26 inches from here to here. So they call it 26 by 2, right? But this is 700C, which is the rim size is 700C, plus the 35 millimeter. But 700C isn't even really units. It's just like a size that I still don't understand. Whereas 35 millimeters is actually a unit, it's metric. But this is a mountain bike, so it's all done in inches of the frame, and then inches in the wheel size and the tire. Whereas this is inches on the frame, 700C, which nobody knows what it is, and then metric for the width of the tire. You with me? Anyway, the point is, these are the same size bike. But this was a mountain bike, or it was called a mountain bike, and this was a hybrid, which is in between road and mountain, which is an old term now. And I have people come in, they're like, I want a gravel bike. Cyclists know, enthusiasts know that gravel bike means like a road bike with plump tires, drop handlebars for riding on gravel roads, and maybe a little bit of adventuring, but primarily it's road biking out on gravel roads where there's no cars, is gravel biking. But these hybrids were made for riding on gravel bike paths. So because gravel biking has kind of made it into the more common lexicon of bicycles, people are really wanting a hybrid. But a lot of people think that hybrid means that it's an electric bike because of the cars now. So it's a really confusing term. You picking up what I'm putting down here? What we have here is a classic Italian Benotto road racing bike from the 80s. It's got like an old campy, so early 80s, maybe late 70s. Now, Back then, because road biking was primarily European, everything was metric. And they would still measure seat tubes for bike sizes, okay? But they would do it metric, most road bikes. So metrically, center to center here, this is a 53 and a half, 54 to the top. Let's call it a 54, okay? Now when I looked at this, I looked here and at this gap, and I just kind of know by looking now, and I'd call this bike a medium road bike, okay? Now, 54 centimeters is about 21 inches. 21 inches, and I was gonna call this a medium. Those were 17 inches and they were mediums. What the hell, right? Back in like the 80s and into the 90s, for the most part, all of these road bikes, the geometry was so similar that you could say, I am a size, a certain size, a 54. Now what really matters is top tube, and that's like 55. Now the top tubes on my custom bikes are like 57, okay? But this bike would be way too small for me, but it's only like an inch top tube difference. So theoretically, I could just like put the seat up and get the right size stem and then make this bike work. It's maddening. I mean, I would probably label it on the tag a 54 centimeter because somebody that would be buying this would be like still thinking in centimeters probably, but you never know. I still have people come into the shop and be like, I'm a 56 centimeter, and I look at them, I'm like, no, you're not. So I don't have a good example in the shop right now of a modern road bike, but the geometry is all different. They have like a sloping top tube and the seat tubes are much shorter, okay? And Trek is still calling them like 56 centimeter, right? Which is a large bike. Now I would probably fit on a 56 centimeter, but because of the sloping top tube, the effective top tube length and the effective seat post, if you compare it to this, they actually fit more like a 59 centimeter, but they call them 56s. So a lot of people come in and they're like, I'm a 56. Now that would be more like a 59 in old road bike geometry or 58 or something. But in new bikes, it actually means something. But then like Giant calls them larges or maybe a medium large. They have medium M/L. They have like a, corresponds to no number. So it just kind of depends. And then you try having if you haven't clicked out already, like, imagine me having this conversation with a customer. I don't know how to have an intelligent conversation about this stuff. It's impossible to explain. Okay, both of these bikes are Giant Talons. They are both medium. This one has 27.5-inch wheels. This one has 29-inch wheels, okay? Bear with me. Very similar to 26-inch wheels, the old mountain bike standard, right? Where everything's in inches. That is approximately 27.5 inches from here to here, approximately 29 from here to here. Now the frames are the same size, so it's the same size bike by the book. Okay, but the wheels are very different by 1.5 inches. 27.5 inches is slightly bigger than 26, and 29 is slightly bigger than 27.5. They don't even make bikes in 26-inch anymore. That standard is gone. These rims are 650B, okay? These rims are 700C. Same as the road bike that was just up here, same circumference, same diameter wheel, actual rim as that road bike, 700C, but this has 2-inch tires, which is also like approximately 52 millimeters, or 53 or something like that by the books. And because 700C plus the 2-inch tire makes approximately 29 inches, they call it 29er. Now 650B is actually closer rim size to 26-inch rims. Very similar, it's just a little bit bigger, but with the big thick tires, it makes it 27.5-inch. I don't know how to make this easier for you. It's dumb, but these bikes clearly are not the same size bike to me, because this one has much smaller wheels. I think they're much smaller. This bike even comes with like shorter handlebars, but they both say medium on them. So I size a customer, I'm like, you're a medium. These bikes feel so different. This one feels huge compared to this one, blah, 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 right? It's because it doesn't matter what size it is. I can't answer the question. I don't know what size bike you are. It depends on the bike. For shits and giggles, this is 16 inches. We call them mediums. Okay, right here we have a brand new Giant Contend AR. AR stands for all road. That's just another way of saying gravel, in my opinion. Okay, but they don't really call this a gravel bike. It comes with 32 millimeter tires, whereas gravel bikes are gonna have something wider, closer to 40. I would say 38 would be the minimum, but you could fit that on this bike. Now most hybrids, as I like to call them, or like city, commuter, urban, regular bikes for regular people, like a hybrid is typically 700C by 35 millimeter. By the way, these are 700C wheels. That road bike wheel size that is the same rim diameter, same rim size as the 29er mountain bike. They just call them 29 inch because they have the fat 2-inch tires. But if you were to put 50 millimeter tires on this and a gravel bike, you would call it 700C by 50 millimeters. You would never call it 29er on a gravel bike. No, no, no. I don't have a proper gravel bike, but this is the closest thing I've got to it. So it's the Giant Contend all-road entry-level bike. It's actually a great bike for the value, and this is my last one, and I just rode it over here from my other space, and I'm like, what a great little bike for cheap. If I jacked the seat up, this bike would fit me great. It's a large. Now, traditional road bike sizes, I'm like a 59 is my sweet spot, okay? I don't know what 59 centimeters even is in inches. You can do the math. Somebody Google it, you know, whatever. I'll do that in the edit. Okay, I'm gonna go center to center here. That's 50 centimeters, 19 and a half inches. Now, a 59, I'd be right about up to here. So to the top, okay, is 55 or 56. So like Trek would call this size 56. This would be a 56 as a large. My size in a Trek Domani would be 56. I could fit on a 58. I'm kind of in between sizes. I can do either or, but I'd probably buy the 56 and then make it fit, just because I like to be a little more upright. Now, if I wanted to be more extended, or if I had long arms instead of all Tyrannosaurus Rex, then I would go with the longer bike, the bigger bike. You know, it's like the rules change, right? Because really top tube is what matters. And this one, center to center, is 56. I said my custom bikes are like 57-ish. 56, it just kind of depends on the bike. So this is my size. It's a large 50. 50, right? And that blue Bonotto I had up, which I called a medium, was 54, okay? And that's just because bike geometry has changed. So this is a good example of that. There is enough clearance here to maybe fit 38s on this bike. So this could be a gravel bike, you know, aluminum frame. I mean, I could say all kinds of other things about it, but you know, tire size, but you know, you wouldn't be able to get the real plump ones. Like a lot of gravel bikes can handle some serious meat now, but they would never call it 29er. It's a gravel bike, it's a road bike. So you have to think in 700C by millimeters because it's roady instead of mountainy. So this large Gary Fisher Wahoo, I kind of love this bike, by the way. Should we guess? Oh, we're gonna guess. I swear to God, I haven't measured it. I have no idea. I'm gonna guess this is 19, maybe 18. I'm gonna go center to center. 18 and a half. Pretty good guess. Like I look at this bike and I always look right here and I'm like, this bike with upright handlebars and a comfy seat and doing the things, it would make a pretty decent candidate for like an ATV conversion for somebody my height. I'm 6 feet, right? And I ride a large. I just think maybe it's a little small, and I tend to think that this should be at least 20 for me. If you go to the top, it's 19. In mountain bike inches, this is probably a 19, which would be a large. 17 is a medium. 21 would be extra large, okay? But sometimes it's 18, 20, 22. Sometimes, as we saw in that Trek Hybrid, and by the way, Gary Fishers were made by Trek, so I always think of these as Treks. They're like 16 and a half, 18 and a half, 19 and a half, or maybe 15 and a half, 17 and a half, 19 and a half. None of it means anything. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's not consistent brand to brand. It's not even consistent by the same manufacturer. Since this is a Trek and those are Treks, they're different. Because this is a large, but maybe Treks for a while. But I don't know, that looks like the same era Trek and that has 17 and a half on it. I don't know. At least the wheels are the same size. This is still 26 by 2, which is actually 23 by 2. This is a big bike. We call this an extra large around my shop. Let's measure it. I'm gonna guess somewhere in the 22-inch range. Just by looking at it, you can see how big of a gap you have here. This is still that old geometry. There's no sloping top tube or anything too weird going on here, but center to center is 20 and a half. But you can see there's like this little bit here, so they probably measure it like that, 23 inch. Okay, so I'm guessing it doesn't have a sticker on it, but I'm guessing the sticker on this bike would have said 23 inch. I call it an extra large, straightforward. It's got the same size wheel as the tiny Specialized Hard Rock that we started with. The exact same wheels. I think I already put that one away, otherwise I'd pull it out. But that one had a 13 inch frame. This one has a 23 inch frame. So this is like a 10 inch, you know, which is like that big of a difference. So that other frame, you know, that top tube came down here. Remember there was only one little water bottle there? And it was the same wheel size. So this just gets jacked up. Now, back in the day, mass-produced bikes were all built by hand. They would fillet braze them, crazy, like the old Schwinn's, the old Schwinn Varsities and things like that. The top tubes and the down tubes were all cut to the same length, all mitered to the same angles. The only thing that changed was the seat tube and the head tube. That's why we measure bikes this way. Because it was just how tall you were. It would be your inseam. And everybody would ride around like this, but they would just put a longer stem on the bike and maybe scoot the seat back a little bit. But they just figured you'd just ride like this if you were really tall. As the racing and people like realized that, oh, bikes have to be big this way too, bikes like that Bonotto, it became proportional frame sets. And that's how you come up with this. So all these tubes are different and like manufacturing process is improved and that sort of thing. So, but like the rear triangle here stays the same. This would just get a little bit longer and the forks are all the same, just the steer tube length would change. So 26 inch, 26 by 2, 26 by 2 inch tires, but again, it's actually a 23 inch rim with a, and then it, you know, measures to 20 magically, I don't know how, measures to about 26. It's actually a little bit more, it's like 26 and a half, but you don't call them that, you know, like you do the 27 and a half, you call it 27 and a half, but that's because it's like 26 inch, 29 inch, and then 27 and a half inch snuck in there, right? It's halfway in between. That's how they got that number. That's how they got the number. I just figured it out just now. And then we have the extra tall, gigantic, ridiculous bikes. Now this one is a really good example because it's extra stupid. Now part of the reason why it's extra stupid is I found it at Bikes for Kids Wisconsin. I talked to Harvey. It's extra stupid because Harvey's a dumbass. He had this bike in the back room as if it had some sort of value just because it has like these weird Shimano Dior parts. I don't know, maybe he knows something I don't. He said if I don't call him a dumbass in this video, he'd be upset. So there you have it. He said it's a 27 inch bike. Okay, now to be fair, Harvey's a good friend of mine from back in the day. He is not a cyclist, just hired him back in the day to help me with Free Bikes for Kids because he's an extremely capable human being and good with people and likes to get the job done. And now he's kind of like running things around the shop out there. It's great, okay? He's a good guy, but he called it a 27 inch bike. He has a pretty decent bike IQ now, but like when I hired him, he had a 0. You know, like he knew nothing about bikes, but like I said, he's learned over the years, call it a 27 inch bike. Now, I haven't double checked, but I think these are 27 inch tires. Yep, I'm looking right here, okay? So these are 27 inch wheels. Before 700C came around, right, Schwinn, everything was 27 and a half inch or 27 and a quarter, or 27 and a quarter. I just said 27 and a half because the mountain bike size is 27 and a half. Now, 27 inch rims are slightly bigger than 700C. So this bike, you could put 700C wheels in it, but the brake pads probably wouldn't line up to the rims because the rims would be too small. So 27 inch, yeah, it's a 27 inch bike if you're talking wheel sizes like kids bikes, how we start at 12 inch, 14, 16, 18, you know, or 12, 16, 20 if you're buying decent bikes and you just ignore 14 and 18, right? We'd already talked about that. But I think he was like talking like it's a 27 inch bike this way because if you look at this head tube, it is a huge gap here. It's a big bike. So let's measure it. Center to center, because that's the way I go. 26 and a half, okay? So the top, it's 27. So if you go to the top of the seat thing here, what do you call it? The seat collar to the center, it's a 27 inch frame. Gigantic. Oh, let's see what that is in centimeters. That is 69 centimeters. This is one of the biggest bikes I've seen around in a long time. Like I said, I'm like, I need the biggest, most obnoxious thing you've got. This is what he came up with. So I think it's appropriate that it has the 27 inch wheels because they're a little bit bigger, like, you know, just bigger proportions. Also, this is built after they started making Schwinn's in proportioned. So it's got like a 64 centimeter top tube. Actually, you know, for a guy who's 6'8", you know, something like that, and you can't find a bike, this would be a great one. You can put upright handlebars on this, fit a little bit plumper tire, is what I would do. These are 27 1/4, or no, these are 27 1/8, which is like 28 millimeter. If you go to 27 1/4, 27 by 1 1/4 is like 32 millimeter. That's what I put on these, like the Paselas, like I have on my Bob Jackson, which is right behind the camera that I showed you in that other video. The problem with 27-inch bikes, now I just call them 27-inch bikes because if they have 27-inch wheels, from a charitable bike standpoint, it sucks because these tires are pretty much shot, and you don't find used 27-inch tires anywhere that are in good shape because it's obsolete. They haven't made a brand new 27-inch bike since, I don't know, 1984, 1982. I mean, it's been forever. So you have to put brand new tires on them, and charitably, you know, you got to buy the tires and they're not cheap and so on and so forth. So they don't have a whole lot of value. It is kind of a neat example of a 27-inch bike. So I wanted to show that, and it's actually 27 inches. That's just coincidental because when I say 27-inch, I'm talking about the wheel size. Bike people kind of know that, but you wouldn't. Okay, then there's bike fitting, where people pay hundreds of dollars to go sit on machines and have people measure, and they get everything just fit perfectly, get your stem height and everything, and reach and levers. That's a whole nother animal. I think it's snake oil. Those people out there that have done it and said that it improves their performance would totally disagree. I don't know. I get a bike that's close enough, I ride it, I make the tweaks until it's super comfortable and it's right and it feels good. That's how I've always done it. Then again, I'm a bike mechanic, so I guess if I didn't know what I know, I'd have to pay somebody to tell me, so maybe bike fitting does make sense, but I think they're selling you a load of garbage a lot of the time, and you gotta be really careful of what you believe. Now, sometimes they might just nail it. It might make a huge improvement, but a lot of times I think they're just like, you know, there's some science behind it, but everybody's different, right? Everybody thinks about it different. There's a different theory, and everybody talks in a different language. To wrap it up, I've got here a micro bike. This bike is a pit bike with tiny, tiny wheels, like 5-inch wheels, right? Rideable by an adult. I'm not gonna do it. Sorry, not gonna do it. This is an adult bike, a pit bike. It's a novelty bike. This is the smallest bike I have in the shop and the biggest bike, and they're both garbage. Thanks for watching. Well, I'm really glad I had an opportunity to clear everything up for you. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, send that super thanks, join the channel, do all of the things. But for yourself, click that notification bell so you and your bike can stay tuned.